Edtech Monday Africa is brought to you by the Mastercard Foundation's Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning in ICT and Mastercard Foundation's Young Africa Works.
Hello and welcome. This is Edtech Monday Africa. My name is Joy Doreen Bira, holding fort for Julie Gishuru this month. Our March edition is all about celebrating African women in education and technology. If this is your first time watching Edtech Monday Africa, is a platform to facilitate critical conversations on the use of technology for teaching and learning by bringing together key stakeholders that include policymakers, edtech entrepreneurs, teachers, and parents. March being the month where we mark International Women's Day, the Mastercard Foundation's Young Africa Works strategy aims to enable 30 million young people to access dignified and fulfilling work by the year 2030. Young women make up 70% of this target, and as such, the foundation strives to ensure that all of its programs are not only gender sensitive, but also address barriers facing young women. Now, last year, to celebrate the International Women's Day, we discussed the challenges that girls and young women face in accessing quality education in Africa and how technology can bridge those gaps. This being 2022, we take the conversation to the next level. Be inspired by amazing women who have excelled in education and technology across Africa. And these are my panelists today, or this month. I'll start by introducing them. Dr. Shiko Gitao, the Chief Executive Officer, Kala. She is responsible for the setup of Safaricom Alpha, a first of its kind corporate innovation hub in Africa. And also we have with us Bethlehem Desi, who is the founder and Chief Executive Officer, ICOG, anyone can code, a subsidiary of ICOG Labs, Ethiopia's fast AI and robotics lab, and is working on community outreach as well as research with a focus on teaching, technology education, and entrepreneurship. And we also have Folawe Ominkule, who is the Chief Executive Officer, Teach for Nigeria, a non-profit organization that is focused on addressing educational inequality and recruiting university graduates and working professionals to serve as full-time teachers in Nigeria's most underserved schools. Ladies, it's great to have you on here. A warm welcome to us all. And I guess I should start by posing a question to each and every one of us. First of all, in the different fields that we are in, could you briefly just share a little bit about your story, how you got to where you are, and what are some of those attributes you would say led to your success? I'm going to start with Bethlehem.
Thank you very much, Joy, and thank you very much for inviting me and being a part of this session with these amazing women. So where do I start? So actually a few weeks ago, we were asked at the team building activity to write some of things that we're grateful for. And one of the things I wrote down was that I was grateful for the internet, right? Because the internet really changed my life. When I was first introduced to it, and after that, to create myself opportunities, to create myself travel opportunities and learning opportunities throughout the year. And that was possible because I had a computer and I had an internet. So it was really important for me to give that opportunity for others. So as you've mentioned in my bio, I started coding at a very early age. I actually initially started coding when I was 9 years old because I was trying to celebrate my birthday and I asked my father for some money because we were in the same shop. And then, he was working and I was, doing things with the computer. And he said he was not going to give me the money for my birthday. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to make some money from the computer and then I'll keep that and celebrate my birthday. So that day, people were coming out of the shop. They were buying mobile phones, they were buying memory cards. And I was pitching an idea to them saying, okay, I can edit your videos, I can edit your photos that you have and you'll pay me for it. So that day I made about $90. So being, the child of the merchant and understanding the value of money and the freedom it has given me, I threw a really nice birthday party. I invited all of my friends. I decided to promote my business. And, we had popular channels that were promoting toys, Arab channels, NBC channels. And, when they promote the toys, they put the website and say, you can see more about this toy on the website. And I was a huge Power Rangers fan. So I was like, you know what, let me promote my business by building a website, because I was in an eastern part of Harar. I didn't know anything about the rest of Ethiopia or the capital. And I thought, okay, I was the only one doing this ever. So I said, people should come to me for this service. And I started learning how to code by just, asking for some, books from the library, etc., in the university around us. And because of that, I'm very glad, and I have had a lot of opportunities,
Right.
and I want to give that to others. And that's the reason why I started Anyone Can Code.
I would also like to hear from Dr. Shiko as well. Shiko, what would you attribute your success to?
I always start with this because it's a very important part of my life. God is an extremely important part of my life. So I'll say I'll attribute 100% of my everything I am to God, because he opened up the opportunity. In addition to that, because you can't just believe in God and sit down, I work hard. You have to really work hard, yeah? And you have to take risks, calculated, but take risks. And this is something many women don't do. And thirdly, be kind to people. I always say people always open door for you and talk about you in places that you'll never know. So I always say I was a maths geek. So unlike Bethlehem here, we didn't have computers. So my computing did not come from a computing exposure. It came from my love of maths. Actually, I had an amazing, fantastic, I miss her. My maths teacher in high school was Mrs. Lois Koele. She was amazing. And I remember she called me when I was in Form 2 and said, there's a way you approach mathematics that is quite unique from my students. I want to give you a challenge. And giving us a 16-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old a challenge to go and do maths in the library was quite the task. And I took up the challenge and I did all these maths book. And I was in a very old high school, like it was set up in the 60s. So they had all these old maths books, and I'll do maths and take to hand, she'll correct me and do this. And my love for maths grew from there. So I knew when I went to university, I was going to do maths. I thought I was going to be a maths teacher and be like Mrs. Coyle and change girls' life, because it changed not only my life. When I was in high school, I was teaching my roommates, because we're in a room of 4. I'll teach my roommates who are younger than me maths, and even my seniors some maths, because I was that maths girl in school. And so when I went to university, I got a scholarship to African Nazarene University, and they had 3 programs. I always say they had theology. I love God so much. I was not going to do theology. Commerce sounded boring. And they had computer science that had all these, like I saw it, I'm saying this was made for me, like literally computer science is 90% mathematics. And then I did my first programming. So I did my first programming at the age of 19. So you're so lucky that you did at 9. It was a language called Pascal. And for me, the aha moment was I could type this thing and it could do what was in my head, because we'll design something like a window or a button, and then you type out code and you would see it happening in front of your eyes. That I was caught up. And I started coding at that point, and I became that friend who coded for our friends, so that my friends would not hang out with friends who are failing. So I became a good friend to all of them. And yeah, so I did computer science. I enjoyed doing maths, computer science, and statistics. And I went and did my graduate school. I always say I got into a conflict in third year, because I was thinking, I did an internship at Mukuru kwa Jenga. Mukuru kwa Jenga, for those who don't know, is like a big slum in Nairobi. It's really, really bad. Most people talk about Kibera. Mukuru is way worse than Kibera. And I did an internship in Mukuru, and I met this young woman. We were age mates. We were 22. She had 3 kids. She was dying of HIV. That caught my spirit. And I couldn't understand, why you're doing computer science? Why didn't you do some humanity, something that would help her? What is maths and computer science ever going to help this person? So it became a life question for me. How is my talent and my mathematics going to help the world become a better place to live in? And it became a really existential problem. And I talked to many people. And eventually I landed in something called ICT and development. So it's the application of computer science in the development world. And that's what I do. Right. And I remember when I was doing graduate school, which was a big thing. But now whenever somebody calls me, like I get called into companies and stuff to help them solve for technology, I always say, this is what I learned, is how do I apply technology to move the needle in Africa? We were talking with Suraj earlier, how do we apply technology to help more kids get educated, and not just get educated, get quality education? So it's taking those risks and saying, I'm going to do this. There's 90% chances of failure, but I'm going to do it. And believing in yourself, and having, again, being kind to people, of course, but also having a dream that is bigger than yourself. Yeah. And that is something that I like telling women, because women are always like, how it's selfish getting into these spaces. They say, no, but if you're in those spaces, you're influencing people who are going to do something that is bigger than yourself. People will never know your name. There are things I've done in my life that people don't know my name or the name behind those things, but I'm so proud of it when I see it, because it's changing people's lives. Yes.
Great. I like that. Risk-taking, self-belief, dreaming bigger. And Folawe, I want to hear the big story. You come from Africa's most populous country, and so seeing women succeed in technology is actually amazing to see. But let me hear your story. What would you attribute your success to?
Thank you so much, Joy. And I was just saying that maybe I'd have had better grades in math if Shiko was my friend back in school, but basically my background and getting into social enterprise and getting into, social entrepreneurship work that I do today, sort of like was accidental. So my background is in international law and diplomacy, and I've always wanted to become a diplomat. My dream really was to one day become an ambassador, for Nigeria. And that was the path that I was threading on. So my undergraduate degree was in international law and diplomacy. My master's degree was in diplomatic studies, and I was hoping to join the Ministry of Foreign Affairs back home in Nigeria. And so after my master's, I went on to apply to join the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I had to wait at home for 6 months, and I couldn't get a job, and I was applying, just waiting to get into the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And when that didn't happen, I had no interest to go and work in like typical corporate Nigeria. I knew that from very early on that I wasn't cut out for that. But I also knew that I wanted to pursue purpose. I wanted work that was impactful. And so during the time that I was waiting at home, the only place that it seemed like that I could buy time was working in a school. And so going to work in a school was almost just to buy time waiting to join the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So I picked up a job at a school as a school administrator, just still pursuing and chasing my opportunity to join the Foreign Affairs. And while I was at that school was when I started to feel like there was something else competing for the passion for wanting to, become a diplomat. And this was just this idea of early years education and Montessori education. I completely fell in love, with the approach and with just how I'd see children come into school, and then it would take a few months and they're completely blooming and learning so much. And that really piqued my interest. But one thing happened that struck me and literally changed the trajectory of my life while at that school. And it was having a girl, the school you was situated or is situated in a highbrow area in Lagos. And a parent whose children had relocated to the US, adopted this orphan and enrolled her at the school. And this girl was completely different from the set of kids who were in the school. It was literally like in comparison to day and night. But then within watching that little girl for 3 months and seeing her transform, it left an impression within me where while I'm driving back home from work and driving to work, from home and seeing kids on the street who were begging for alms, I would always imagine them being in that school and being in that environment and having that same opportunity that little orphan girl had. And so it was at that point that I knew that, I could no longer just wait working in this school, serving 100 children, who came from privileged backgrounds, and I just felt a deep sense of responsibility to do more and to reach more children like that little girl. And that's where that's what led me to the work that I do today, where, from that school, I joined an organization here in Nigeria that was working with a group of schools, but highbrow schools. And it was working with a vision to ensure that one day all children in Nigeria will attain qualitative education. And then while I was there, I kept asking the question, like, we're not reaching all Nigerian children, how do we get to more? And it was that vision literally that pushed me, and got me to being part of the group that co-founded and started Teach for Nigeria, where today we're serving children who are in underserved communities, who we're trying to ensure that they have access to quality education.
Amazing. What I get from the three of you is that there's a connecting factor there. That is the need to solve social problems. And I think that's where the best innovations also come from. And which is sort of in line with this year's International Women's Day theme, Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. I now want to come on to Bethlehem. When you are a young woman in a space that is male dominated, there are definitely certain challenges that you might experience. Were these challenges you experienced peculiar for both the fact that you are young and also are a woman or a female? Tell us about those and how were you able to overcome them?
Thank you, Joy. So I always talk about this because, I'm very lucky enough to have parents and a support system that really supported me. And, my father would go around with me through, wherever I go, to the offices, to the places I would code. So it was really helping me out, tackle these kind of problems. But when I really noticed the impact was, I started my first startup, and then it was a group of guys. They would stay all night coding, and I would want to join them, but my father wouldn't allow me, saying, okay, you can't be spending the night and coding and working on this with all of these men, right? So I was really young, and I was raised in an environment where, my father was kind of the figure, and he was always protecting me from these kind of things. But that was when I really saw, okay, maybe this is not nice because I'm the only female in that group. Why aren't there are many more females? And then when I first joined ICOG Labs and working on, AI and robotics, I saw the bias that was being created, the tools that were being developed and how it was impacting them. But also after working, I saw how much the workplace was not really a place for especially young female engineers and young female computer scientists to thrive in, because I see a lot of females changing fields and going to other kind of career paths because they really feel uncomfortable being in a workspace that's not suited for them. But yeah, I would say I was very protected at a very early age, but I started seeing these types of problems growing up. And one of the things we do is to make sure that at least girls are aware about the tech space and the tech career and the paths they could take, so that we can have more women in tech in the near future.
So what do you tell them in the event that, they come to you and say, we're experiencing this challenge, especially the fact that we are fewer women in this space? How do you encourage them to get over some of these challenges?
I mean, it's quite hard because, for example, I can control the space that I work in. I can control my work environment. So it's kind of making sure that you have a support system. You connect with other female entrepreneurs, females that are working in tech, so that, at least you have someone to talk to about these problems. You have role models to look up to and how to go about it, because every case is very unique. So for me, it's always about bringing them in and finding a support system for them to make sure that they thrive in the business, and recommending each other for work, recommending each other for multiple opportunities. So that way we can grow the network.
Falawe, now to you, Teach for Nigeria, some of your work involves recruiting volunteers, teachers who have graduated from university. Have you found that there are more men or women interested in doing this work? And if yes, how are you able to split it in terms of equality or equity in this case? And if not, what do you think, drives the tilt towards one direction? Do you feel that there are more women involved in it for specific reasons, or there are more men involved in it for specific reasons? Tell us about that in terms of the work that you do.
Thank you very much, Joy. And I mean, just to sort of like paint a picture of what our program, what it's about, and the rigor that entails, coming on our fellowship program, is that we recruit graduates, whether female or male, from very diverse disciplines and academic backgrounds, and they're required to teach as full-time teachers in really high need, underserved rural communities for 2 years as full-time teachers. And they're called fellows, by the way. And, so to answer your question, one of the things that our program prioritizes is, the academic and leadership competencies, the commitment, the willingness to actually commit the time, to the fellowship, the resilience, the passion, and with all of this, we prioritize, all of these criteria, to recruiting our participants. And these participants come from across all over Nigeria, and for those who have studied in Nigeria or for those who have studied outside Nigeria. And what we've seen on an average is that there are more men who are applying to the program. We've seen this historically since we started the program. But then what we've also seen is that on an average, we've also seen that since 2017, when we launched the program, we've had an average of 15% more men than women. And there are lots of factors, that we see that drives this. First, at the application stage already, we have more men who are applying. And then also during the selection phase, we're finding that, there's still more men who are scaling through the process. And what happens is that as the female and the women begin to understand the rigor of the application process, also of the placement and deployment in the schools where they'll be sent to, we see a lot of drop-offs also happen. One of the things that we've also seen that is driving this, this ratio of more men than women is also that parents actually allow their or guardians, are more comfortable with allowing their younger, the young men embark on a journey as such, where, they're posted to, unfamiliar terrain and environment, and also posted to, environment, like in most cases, even have to relocate. But we find that parents are protective of their young women and young girls, and not able to, and they're usually not confident, and comfortable to allow them to make such moves. So we've seen that as one. Another thing that we've seen, is that in cases of young male Nigerians, we find that with those who have families, we're seeing that men are able to make quicker decisions, to relocate. In fact, we've seen and we've had a number of fellows who are able to relocate their families, and once their posting has been issued and offered. Unlike the women, we've seen a lot of women being unable to make relocation decisions without, the consent of their spouse, and in most cases, we've seen, rejection and decline at that stage where we make offers because, they're usually not able to get the buy-in, of their spouse to come into their program. And so what we've done, like since just following this trend in the last 5 years, in the last 2 years, it's starting to even out. And what we're seeing now is we're tilting towards having it like 10% more men than women. But typically, around this conversation, like it starts from just even the entry points. Like, of course, more men are getting better access to quality education, to universities. And so basically, it's that same pipeline that is reflected in what we have access to recruit from, but that has been the journey so far.
Shiko, now to you. When you observe what's happening in the technology space, and you've been in this industry for over a decade, what are your observations? What are the trends? Where do you see women's interests in technology leading up to? And how exactly do we increase this number? Because while we are seeing more women in technology, the pace at which they're getting into the space is still a bit slow. So give us your experience. What are your observations, and how do you think we can, for lack of a better word, jumpstart our women to take up these positions more?
there's a number of ways of looking at this. When I was starting, like in my first year, we were, I think, 10 girls in a class of 45. And then right now, of those girls, only 2 of us are still in computing. So it's not just about getting more women into the field, it's keeping women in the field. Yeah. Because sometimes we say, let's get more women. But when we get them into a computer science class, IT class, get them into entry-level jobs. But how are we keeping them in the field? So getting them into the field is becoming really easy. Yeah, because they are now great role models, both male and female. And I love Gen Zs because they are cisgendered or ungendered, however you say it. They take role models whether they are male or female. Yeah, they have seen highly successful women who are doing great. So when you talk to a 17, 16-year-old, they want to do computing because they saw somebody build this great platform and they can do it. They have I can do it mentality. Yeah. So getting them in is not a problem. Keeping them is a problem because it's very sad to hear what Bethlehem had said, that even at her age, there are still those discrepancies of men and female. And the way you treat women is very different from when you treat males, even at entry-level jobs. Yeah. And sometimes as people managers or as lecturers or as trainers, we want to treat everybody as one homogeneous group. However, how do you treat women to keep them? What motivates women? When I started my introduction, I said, what kept me is the idea that I can apply technology to relieve world's problem. If I had not found that link, I most likely would have dropped because I didn't see the role of technology in doing what I'm purposeful for, what I feel like is purposeful for my life. And are we giving women more of those opportunities? Money is a very good motivator and incentivizer, but that will only last the first 5 or 6 years. And you get a point where you just flatline in terms of money. Then what next? What is it that we can tell women they can continue doing to change the world using technology, that by doing this, you're able to do this, like what she's doing. I'm able to use technology to bring more women or many young people to employment. I'm able to do this to agriculture or do something, just getting women doing something that is purposeful for them. Building a support system. As she said, you have a circle of women or people who you can go and ask questions. That is the other thing that we need to do it. And not just at entry level, but at mid-level. That's why we drop many women in technology, is because most of them are saying, everybody who is surrounding me right now is a man. They don't understand that at this point, I want to get married, I want to have kids, I want to still grow in my career. I'm not feeling this coding thing. Where can I grow in my career in other places? I don't want to be locked in a room coding all the day. How else can I apply my skill set within the technology field? And giving women those options within the technology field to grow as leaders and also as individual contributors, and showing them that you can do it, and showing them that you're solving a big enough problem. Because they always say when you're negotiating as a woman, you never negotiate for myself. A man will go and say, hey, me, I'm negotiating because I want to buy a car, I want to buy nice shoes, get a nice TV. But women will not go and negotiate for themselves that way. They'll go and negotiate for them. I have a baby. I need to be able to send money to my parents in the village. I want to do all these things. Right. In the same way, we need to give that same big picture community mentality to women when it comes to technology, that they're solving a bigger problem more than themselves. And then we'll keep them in technology, because bringing them, we are having no problem.
Right. So, and this is a question probably that we can all contribute to. In terms of our demographics, what we have on the African continent appears to be a youth bulge. And with this youth bulge means that there's so many gaps that need to be filled, with so little opportunity for those gaps to be filled. And I want to start with Bethlehem. From your perspective as a young person, how do you think we can integrate our young people or fellow young people into the workspace in technology, knowing that we are undergoing what some would refer to as failing to achieve the demographic dividend, or in this case, youth dividend?
It comes down to, for me, democratizing access. to technology and technology education. So what I've seen so far is, organizations, a lot of, big government coming to us and saying, okay, this is your problem and this is the solution, we're providing it to you, right? But instead, I believe that youth should be provided with the tools to solve the problem themselves. So actually, one of a great example I've seen through the work we're doing is in Gambela, a boy who is living with his parents, attends our Solve It program. And, we were educating about design thinking, about, how to build apps, etc. So the problem he was facing was that, he goes to the downtown, and when he asks for a macchiato, which is like, milk and coffee, they'll tell him there's no milk. But he knows back at home that his parents' friends, and the community has a lot of milk that's being stored and that's not being sold. So basically, with the tools and the education that was provided for him, what he was able to do was develop a really small app where he collected, how many liters each household produce and the shortest time to collect that milk, right? And 2 years later, we went back to that city, and he has his own 3-wheeled car, a Bajaj, and he has bought himself a computer, right? So this person has built a business for himself. He has solved this problem that he was facing. And it's not always about building or solving the greatest problems, solving what you have in your community, solving, what you're facing from day to day is also important. So I believe that we need to provide them with access and the tools to start building. I think that's what I think we should do.
And I believe that young women really need this democratized access for them to be able to achieve what they want to achieve. Falawe, I want to hear from you as well in this regard. When Bethlehem talks about democratizing access, how do we ensure that women in technology spaces are actually achieving this?
Thank you so much, Joy. And I can speak for women in education space, and I think, more than anything, and I resonate that story that Bethlehem just shared, definitely resonates with me and with the sector that I work in, and where we've also seen that more girls are interested, particularly in Northern Nigeria, where we've placed our fellows and where we've placed female fellows in classrooms, who look like them, who are dressed like the students in the communities where the teachers, the fellows are teaching. We've seen that this has increased attendance rates. We've seen that this has increased interest, in finding their own abilities and their own potential. We've seen that it also increased the interest of wanting to transition and going on to secondary schools. And so I think it's super important to ensure that, we are able to have role model, girls and women who could be role models to girl child, within the classrooms and within the schools, that exist across the continent. And so we need to make deliberate efforts. And I think, to the question you asked earlier on, the system, the issues that we're dealing with, is a systemic issue. And it's one that requires everybody playing a role, from policies to governance, to how we're compensating women, to how we're remunerating, to how we're praising women, to the procedures that we're investing in and systems across board. And I think we need to also intentionally bring that into the education system and reorientate people, educate them, create the awareness, so that people lose the bias that they have, with when it comes to letting women in, and with help supporting women to stay in, to teach and to do what they need to do. And I think that reorientation needs to happen across board, throughout the sector.
And do you think that in this case, giving them that kind of support would help them, for instance, succeed in the education sector?
Absolutely. I think it would help them to succeed. I think it would help them to, think beyond their communities, seeing a woman who has achieved, not only, gone through university and graduated, but one who is also a professional, who is going through the ranks of her career, I think that will inspire them to know that they can become more than what the environment dictates to them. I think it can make them inspired to want to solve problems, to think critically about the environment. But, they need to have those examples of success. They need to be able to reflect that, on themselves. And I think that definitely will give them that opportunity to think, that opportunity to solve problems, that opportunity to believe in themselves, as well.
Right. And there's some who would say that women are being over-prioritized. And when you talk about, is there such a thing as over-prioritization? Because they say countries are now focusing more on girls and women and less on the men and boys, and which is putting one gender at a disadvantage of the other. But what would you say to that? And I want to start with Shiko on this one, just to hear your perspective on that.
So I've been in boardrooms where that has been said. And I asked them, okay, it's fine for you to say this when you're sitting in a big city, in a nice boardroom with air conditioning. You just need to drive out 50 kilometers from here and see how the girl child is treated. Yeah. And then you will see why we are prioritizing girls in this case. It's because here, yes, you have a privilege, and we have to acknowledge our own privilege backgrounds and biases. I am acknowledging my privilege. I'm sitting in this boardroom. I have had exposure and education, but this is not the experience of 90% of women out there, of young girls who are still going through FGM, where gender-based violence is normal. Like, it is normal to beat up a woman, yeah? Where a girl, a boy child and a girl child, a boy child will be sent to school and a girl child will be sent to go and work to be able to get money, to get paid. This is 2022, and this is still happening. So anybody who says that argument, put them in a car, drive them 50 kilometers out of whatever city you are in Africa, even 20 kilometers, and see how a child is treated, a girl child is treated as opposed to a boy child. And then let's have this discussion. I've had this discussion with colleagues and say, let's go and see how a girl is treated outside this city, and we can have this discussion again. And you see the change in their faces when they start seeing girls, young little girls carrying this big, what is it called, firewood on their back. And the boys are coming from school, yes, with tattered uniform, but coming from school. You'd rather go to school with tattered uniform, but go to school rather than be carrying firewood on your back. Yeah, so I feel like we will prioritize girls until girls everywhere are treated equally.
Right. Bethlehem, I want to hear from you as well.
I mean, I completely agree with what Shiko has said. But, it's about leveling the playing field. I don't think it's leveled at all. I mean, if we start from the same level playing field, then we can talk about, saying, okay, women are over prioritized, etc. But that's not the case. It's not even like, we have boxes and boxes and boxes over us with all of these issues that we're facing. So I don't even think that it's something that should be up for discussion. As what's being said, I think we should see what girls and women are experiencing in real life, in their homes, in their communities. So I completely disagree with that. And whoever believes that's the case, I think, as Shiko suggested, they should drive and see what's happening. Yeah.
Right. Folawe?
I agree with both Bethlehem and Shiko. And I think that, we should approach this from a place of fact. And the facts and statistics are already showing us that, girls are not having access, for example, to the same quality of education and, also with employment. And just look at all the data, and fact. And with that, we're already saying that 50% of our world's population, are being underserved or are being disadvantaged or are not getting the same access as the remaining 50%, right? And so really just looking from that point, I don't even think it should be a conversation, that we should be having. We should really be thinking, how do we all ensure that we're able to provide support, for that 50% of our world's population to thrive, to fulfill their fullest potential, to live up to their fullest abilities, because it would work better for all of us, right? And so I don't even know that because the data is there, like the facts are there, so I think just bringing out this fact and to say, saying, why shouldn't we prioritize this conversation, given that this is what we're saying? So what do we need to do to ensure that all women are able to, equally have the same opportunities as men as well?
Right. Okay, so as we all know, this year's theme is Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. And while we've already kicked off this conversation, I want to hear from you, that being this year's International Women's Day theme, what advice would you give to women who are entering and hoping to succeed in their respectful careers and professions? I want to start with Folawe, briefly.
First is believe in yourself. I think it's just so important that you just have that self-belief that you can do anything and achieve anything that you put your mind to. So that's one. I think it's important to also surround yourself with 3 types of people: people who you admire, people who you aspire to be, and peers who inspire and challenge you, because, you can learn from anyone. And I think also people who look up to you. It's important that you surround yourself. And I think it's also important not to shrink in your own ambition. Like, a dream as big as you want, but don't shrink yourself. And so I think really those are like my own 3 tips, for aspiring and thriving in this world that we women are in.
All right, Bethlehem?
Most of it has been, Folawe has already mentioned it, but always educate yourself. It's really important to educate yourself, to be a lifelong learner. So, learn, ask, and most importantly, as Shiko has previously said, be kind to yourself. We always put a lot of stress on ourselves. We have to work twice as hard, but it's also important to have that balance.
All right. And Shiko?
I think women may shy away from taking risks.
Mm-hmm.
I always say take risks because they always pay. You will learn or you will succeed. And the second thing is, don't shy away from being a woman. I feel like because we have been culture, actually, especially my generation, we were actualized like we have to do things 5 times better. We became male in our head and forgot that we have a unique ability of being female. Embrace it. Love on yourself. Be kind to yourself. Buy shoes and nice lipstick and be kind to yourself and embrace your own space as a woman. Don't shy away from being a woman. You're smart. You're intelligent. You're beautiful, you're a woman, but also you can own that space.
I love that. Thank you so much, ladies. It's been an honor having this discussion, having this conversation, and what a way to mark International Women's Day this year. And let me just recap on our guests: Dr. Shiko Gital, the CEO for Kala, and we also had Bethlehem Desi, the founder and CEO ICOG, Anyone Can Code, and also Folawe Ominkule, who is the chief executive at Teach for Nigeria. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us in this edition of EdTech Monday Africa. My name is Joy Doreen Bira. Until next month, where you will be back with Julie Gishuru. Thank you all for watching. And you can watch this and all other conversations on the Mastercard Foundation YouTube channel. Bye-bye for now. Thanks for watching.
EdTech Monday Africa was brought to you by the Mastercard Foundation's Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning in ICT and Mastercard Foundation's Young Africa Works.